In section 13 of Counsels and Maxims, Schopenhauer gives us some advice for the governing of the imagination. This chapter is about 3.5 pages long, and Schopenhauer's writing is so clear here, I think I'll simply offer it to you with very little commentary. Schopenhauer writes, "In all matters affecting our weal and or woe, we should be careful not to let our imagination run away with us, and build no castles in the air. In the first place, they are expensive to build, because we have to pull them down again immediately, and that is a source of grief. We should be still more on our guard against distressing our hearts by depicting possible misfortunes. If these were misfortunes of a purely imaginary kind, or very remote and unlikely, we should at once see, on awaking from our dream, that the whole thing was mere illusion. We should rejoice all the more in a reality better than our dreams, or at most be warned against misfortunes which, although very remote, were still possible. These, however, are not the sort of playthings in which imagination delights. It is only in idle hours that we build castles in the air, and they are always of a pleasing description. The matter which goes to form gloomy dreams are mischances, which to some extent really threaten us, though it be from some distance. Imagination makes them look larger and nearer and more terrible than they are in reality. This is a kind of dream which cannot be so readily shaken off on awaking as a pleasant one. For a pleasant dream is soon dispelled by reality, leaving at most a feeble hope lying in the lap of possibility. When we have abandoned ourselves to a fit of the blues, visions are conjured up which do not so easily vanish again, for it is always just possible that the visions may be realized. But we are not always able to estimate the exact degree of possibility. Possibility may easily pass into probability, and thus we deliver ourselves up to torture. Therefore, we should be careful not to be over-anxious on any matter affecting our weal or our woe, not to carry our anxiety to unreasonable or injudicious limits, but coolly and dispassionately to deliberate upon the matter, as though it were an abstract question which did not touch us in particular. We should give no play to imagination here, for imagination is not judgment. It only conjures up visions, inducing an unprofitable and often very painful mood." I'll pause here for a brief comment. Schopenhauer is advising us not to let our fantasies run away with us in either the positive or the negative direction. We shouldn't build castles in the air because they are so unrealistic. We'll find ourselves brought back to reality. But perhaps more importantly, we shouldn't let our imagination of negative things which might happen run away with us, either if they are extremely unlikely or even if they are remotely unlikely, but still possible. These things haunt us. We conjure these up, and then they are very difficult for us to get rid of. Better for us to leave them entirely out of our mental life. And as he says, to look on all of these possibilities from a completely abstract point of view, as though they were somebody else's fate that we were imagining. In this way, we avoid tormenting ourselves with imagined faults and imagined problems that may come up in the future. Schopenhauer continues, "The rule on which I am here insisting should be most carefully observed towards evening. For as darkness makes us timid and apt to see terrifying shapes everywhere, there is something similar in the effect of indistinct thoughts, and uncertainty always brings with it a sense of danger. Hence, towards evening, when our powers of thought and judgment are relaxed, at the hour, as it were, of subjective darkness, the intellect becomes tired, easily confused, and unable to get at the bottom of things. And if in that state we meditate on matters of personal interest to ourselves, they soon assume a dangerous and terrifying aspect. This is mostly the case at night when we are in bed, for then the mind is fully relaxed, and the power of judgment quite unequal to its duties. But imagination is still awake. Night gives a black look to everything, whatever it may be. This is why our thoughts just before we go to sleep, or as we lie awake through the hours of the night, are usually such confusions and perversions of facts as dreams themselves. And when our thoughts at that time are concentrated upon our own concerns, they are generally as black and monstrous as possible. In the morning, all such nightmares vanish like dreams. As the Spanish proverb has it, noche tinta, blanco el día. The night is colored, the day is white. But even towards nightfall, as soon as the candles are lit, the mind, like the eye, no longer sees things so clearly as by day. It is a time unsuited to serious meditation, especially on unpleasant subjects. The morning is the proper time for that, as indeed for all efforts without exception, whether mental or bodily. For the morning is the youth of the day, when everything is bright, fresh, and easy of attainment. We feel strong then, and all our faculties are completely at our disposal. Do not shorten the morning by getting up late, or waste it in unworthy occupations or in talk. Look upon it as the quintessence of life, as to a certain extent sacred. Evening is like old age. We are languid, talkative, silly. Each day is a little life, every waking and rising a little birth, every fresh morning a little youth, every going to rest and sleep a little death. We see here Schopenhauer, obviously a morning person, and recommending, on grounds that seem good to me, saving our serious thoughts and our serious work for the early hours of the morning when our powers of the mind are strongest, and especially avoiding this brooding over our problems when we lie awake in bed at night. That seems to track my experience pretty well. It seems like very good advice. Schopenhauer continues. But condition of health, sleep, nourishment, temperature, weather, surroundings, and much else that is purely external have in general an important influence upon our mood, and therefore upon our thoughts. Hence, both our view of any matter and our capacity for any work are very much subject to time and place. So it is best to profit by a good mood, for how seldom it comes. Nimmt die gute Stimmung wahr, denn sie kommt so selten. He quotes Goethe here, meaning, enjoy the good mood, enjoy your good moods, for they come so seldom. We are not always able to form new ideas about our surroundings, or to command original thoughts. They come if they will, and when they will. So too, we cannot always succeed in completely considering some personal matter at the precise time at which we have determined beforehand to consider it, and just when we set ourselves to do so. For the peculiar train of thought which is favorable to it may suddenly become active without any special call being made upon it, and we may then follow it up with keen interest. In this way, reflection, too, chooses its own time. This reining in of imagination which I am recommending will also forbid us to summon up the memory of past misfortune, to paint a dark picture of the injustice or harm that has been done us, the losses we have sustained, the insults, slights, and annoyances to which we have been exposed. For to do that is to rouse into fresh life all those hateful passions long laid asleep, the anger and resentment which disturb and pollute our nature. In an excellent parable, Proclus the Neoplatonist points out how in every town the mob dwells side by side with those who are rich and distinguished. So too, in every man, be he never so noble and dignified, there is in the depths of his nature a mob of low and vulgar desires which constitute him an animal. It will not do to let this mob revolt, or even so much as peep forth from its hiding place. It is hideous of mien, and its rebel leaders are those flights of imagination which I have been describing. The smallest annoyance, whether it comes from our fellow men or from the things around us, may swell up into a monster of dreadful aspect, putting us at our wits' end, and all because we go on brooding over our troubles and painting them in the most glaring colors and on the largest scale. it is much better to take a very calm and prosaic view of what is disagreeable, for that is the easiest way of bearing it. If you hold small objects close to your eyes, you limit your field of vision and shut out the world. And in the same way, the people or the things which stand nearest, even though they are of the very smallest consequence, are apt to claim an amount of attention much beyond their due, occupying us disagreeably and leaving no room for serious thoughts and affairs of importance. We ought to work against this tendency. So that's the end of section 13 of Schopenhauer's Counsels and Maxims. I think it contains some excellent advice about governing our imagination, especially about avoiding, important for Schopenhauer, a pessimist, avoiding brooding over our misfortunes, painting them larger than life and allowing them to disturb our present equanimity. I think there's a lot that's quite good in here. The idea that these flights of imagination are like the rebel leaders of the mob within us is, I think, a fantastic image and a very memorable one. I hope you've enjoyed this look at this part of Schopenhauer's Counsels and Maxims. We'll take a look at section 14 in another video. Thanks for watching today. Goodbye.